Disclaimer! The following episode contains spoilers for Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Don't go crying to your mum if we spoil it for you. You've been warned. Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast for Place to Hang Your Cape. And this week, let's roll for initiative. We're talking about Dungeons & Dragons! Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. My name's Scott James Merridew, and this is a show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and I'm joined each week by a very special different guest. It's Jillian Diblasio! How are you doing, Jillian?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing okay. Now, we discussed this briefly before the show started, but I have moved flat, Capers. Yes, how nice for me, because my previous place was not a great living situation for me. I was getting sick due to all the black mold in the place, and it has disrupted my life on many different levels. Thankfully, now I have moved. I'm much happier in a new place where I'm much healthier and getting my life back on track, essentially. So that is one of the reasons why the schedule's been all over the place recently. I was only aware of this, the problem on my flat, the past couple of months. I knew there was a bit of a water damage thing, but I didn't realize how extensive the black mold was until we took down the wallpaper. We discussed this, Jillian. It wasn't pretty. Point is, we're hoping, and I've said this before, but we're hoping to get the schedule on back to a regular basis. And we're going to do that starting right now with a mainstream Dungeons & Dragons movie that doesn't have Jeremy Irons in it and doesn't have Tom Hanks in it. Hooray!
Yay! I don't remember the original Dungeons and Dragons movie, so...
Oh, it's brilliant because I think it's pretty much just a completely original story. It's not like set in Faerun or anything like that. It doesn't have any familiar characters or locales or anything like that. It's all new characters. And it's all everyone just like really overacting, really underacting. Thora Birch in it, she's crap. Jeremy Irons is in it. He's brilliant because, like, he's done so many great films where he's like giving really understated but very serious and very subtle performances. Not in this movie. No. In this movie, he's going, "Let your blood rain from the sky." Like, it's so delightfully crap. I kind of love it to pieces, but it's a terrible representation of Dungeons and Dragons, and. So, thankfully, this film came out. I mean, did you ever get to the point, Jillian, where the nerdy shit we love will become the mainstream?
No.
It's weird. I feel both very gratified and very unsettled at the same time.
Yeah, I feel that. You know, high school, I don't know. No comment.
I get it. I mean, I didn't predict, but I've been hoping for this track ever since I was in university when the Marvel films were starting to really take off. People were really like, oh, this is just like those blink and you miss it films from like the early/mid 2000s with like fucking different Spider-Man and Fantastic Four and things like that. This is here to stay. This might actually have some staying power. And me just looking at my phone, looking at the box office returns for Thor versus Green Lantern and laughing my arse off. But it is incredibly gratifying that... Because we've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for years now. I didn't get into it when I was a kid, but I started playing Dungeons & Dragons when I was in my mid-20s. And I've never looked back. We play a regular game that is coming on hiatus, but... we've been very much invested in that world. What character do you play in that campaign, Jillian?
Well, I play Charlotte Whitlock, you know, the murderous bitch warlock.
Murderous bitch, well, honestly, that is a very succinct... we've all had to come to grips with Charlotte's murderous tendencies, despite her genteel outer layer. It's like... Hey, let me put it this way. There's a problem. Do we, A, negotiate... B, use intimidation, or C, no, too late, Charlotte's already murdered them. Murdered them.
Well, at least we're not, like, killing Charlotte off and I have to make a million characters like you.
Okay, so maybe I've had a couple of different characters, and maybe some of them have died for different reasons, maybe because they keep on betraying the team. Look, I don't plan these things, okay? I'm just doing what my character would do in the least arsey way possible. But as people who really love Dungeons & Dragons, Alex, the editor of A Place to Hang Your Cat, that's what Podcapers, is our Dungeon Master, and they do an absolutely fantastic job. And so I was really, really looking forward to seeing this. I think from the trailer, actually, a lot of people are like, "Oh, this actually looks kind of cool. This looks kind of fun. Whole lot of love, meow. Want a whole lot of love, meow." What a pity. I think the film is only okay.
Yeah, I mean, I still enjoyed it though.
I mean, I enjoyed it, but 90% of Rotten Tomatoes, last I checked, something's going on here. But we're going to get into all of that. Before we do, it's time for the news. So Pixar have a new trailer out for their film. I saw the teaser for this film a little while ago. It looked really cool. It's called Elemental, and it's set in Element City, and there's different people in it that are like the four elements. There's like air people and water people and fire people and earth people, things like that. Oh, but they can't mix. Fire people and water people can't be together because what would the elders think? Is the basis of this new trailer. Honestly, I have never seen a more Pixar-y trailer than ever before than this one. It's like someone describing a potential hypothetical exaggerated Pixar film.
I mean, I watched the trailer and I was like, so this is Zootopia again.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I was like, okay, I guess I'll wait for that one on Disney Plus.
It's Pixar, though. This is supposed to be better than Disney proper.
What Pixar movies have you been watching lately? Because the ones I've been seeing lately are not good.
Turning Red?
Oh, yeah, that one was fine. I was thinking of Lightyear.
Oh, yeah, of course, Lightyear. Yeah, we discussed Lightyear on the show. But
here's the thing. I don't even remember, like, what other Pixar movies have come out.
Luca? Which, admittedly, I have not even seen yet.
That one was
I keep
fine.
on telling myself I'm going to see it, but I don't know. It's just... it doesn't look bad. That's the whole thing. It looks absolutely fine for 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is, Pixar are going to pull the rug out from underneath us, and that it's going to turn out not quite as we suspect, or look quite how the trailer is showing. I hope so. If it doesn't, I still think it's going to be good. It's just going to be something that we've definitely seen before. But maybe that's our fault. Maybe we're too jaded and old, and maybe this is meant for the younger crowd, kids who've never seen a Pixar movie before, and this is like their first Pixar movie. We're not the target demographic anymore. That may be something we need to consider.
Here's the thing. You can think that you're being jaded, but then look at Disney and look at Encanto. And then I say, no, it's them that's the problem, because they can pull out bangers that I would enjoy as an adult. So
I hate that I enjoyed Encanto. Like, I didn't want to like Encanto. I went into Encanto expecting to hate it, and it fucking suckered me in. Lin-Manuel Miranda seduced me. It's not fair.
So,
I still have a few problems with it, but you know what? Nothing that spoils my enjoyment of it or makes me think that people shouldn't watch it. Maybe you have a point, but I don't know. I hate having to praise Disney with the whole thing with Ron DeSantis right now. This wasn't planned part of the news, but I do want to mention this. Like, DeSantis was going to do like this oversight board for the Disney parks, but they managed to sidestep him with some legal finagling and a bit of autonomy from him and like the Florida oversight something or other. I don't know, it's politics, but it's a jab in the eye of Ron DeSantis, which I always like, but it's also a check in the wind for the Disney column. And so it's just like, oh God, no matter who wins, I lose.
I mean, just know that, I went to Disney World recently. Just know that, they're not doing as great as you think they are. Like, yeah, they had that nice power move, but
they're still recovering from the whole Chapek sort of thing.
Yeah, I wasn't really happy at Disney World, so
And it's the happiest place on earth.
it
That's
was
that.
so annoying. Like, the park was so overcrowded. You have to make reservations now to get into the park. We wanted to do the Guardians of the Galaxy roller coaster, which was fun, but was a pain in the ass to get into because there was only a virtual queue. It was like, I was like, hey, let's just like go to Universal. Like, because it was just so miserable. Also, I got COVID from fucking Epcot, so, you know.
Oh God, that doesn't sound like an. I'm sorry that happened. That sounds like a horrible time. I only went to their. This is the one in Orlando, right? No, no,
Yeah.
no. So did you go to the one in Anaheim, Orlando?
No, I went to the one in Orlando. I was visiting friends.
Okay, because that's the one I went to when I was a kid. I remember it pretty good, but then I was a kid and I was idiot. I was an idiot. I didn't know better. But
It,
after we went there, we went to Universal and had an equally good time. So
yeah, and the thing is like I like Disney World still and I like Disneyland. I just think that the new policies make it more of like a chore to go to, where it's like if you're going to a theme park, you just want to be spontaneous and like just go in, have a good time, no hassle. Like that's the type of vacation I'm looking for with a theme park, and Disney is just like not like that anymore right now. So if I have to choose, I'm going to do Universal because Universal still is like that. So
yeah, it's your holiday. It's a theme park. You're meant to have fun, and waiting in a virtual queue is not fun, and that's not necessarily their fault. It's the demand is so high, but yeah, that's not great. I'm sorry that happened. But there, that's the new trailer out for Pixar. Hopefully, it'll turn out to be good. Fingers crossed. Something that I do think will be good if the pedigree of this new property is anything to go by. There has been announced by Edgar Wright, confirmed on Twitter with a whole little video and everything, a Scott Pilgrim anime featuring the entire cast from the film. Do you like the film, Scott Pilgrim?
yeah, I like the movie.
Have you read the graphic novels?
No.
You got to check them out. Honestly, if there was one graphic novel that I would recommend to like newcomers for graphic novels, honestly, it would be Scott Pilgrim because it's a lot of fun. It really sucks you into the world, and it's way deeper than it seems at first glance. It's an awful lot of fun. I also like the movie, and I'm really cool. Let's just see what they're going to do with an anime. I'm just going to do the movie all over again, or they explore different side things. Brian Lee O'Malley, the original creator of the graphic novel, is involved, so maybe he's got a whole bunch of new stories to tell. I'm pretty interested. I'm pretty excited for that. We'll see how that goes. But obviously, it's just been confirmed right now. That's a long way off. But it is going to be on Netflix, so we can enjoy a whole one season of it.
Yep.
I know everyone else has made that joke already, but fucking hell, it doesn't stop me making it true. It's
Hey,
oh dear.
we got season 2 of Shadow and Bone. Was it hot garbage? Yes. But we got season 2.
I didn't even. I watched like one episode of the first season. It was just like, I'm sure this would be fine for someone, but not for me. Oh dear. But it apparently it. Well, here's the thing. I say it's going to be a long way off the anime Scott Pilgrim anime, but apparently, according to Edgar Wright on his Twitter, it is imminent, and he's put imminent in block capitals. So we'll see how long that takes to come around. But I'm very excited about that. One thing I'm not excited about, sadly, is a bit of sad news over here in the UK. I mean, there's always sad news coming out of the UK, but that's pretty much our main export at this point. But Paul O'Grady, the beloved entertainer here, has sadly died. As you don't know, Paul O'Grady was a fantastic television personality, entertainer over here in the UK, and he's sort of something of a national treasure. Multiple different talk shows and comedy bits, appearance on television shows. Fantastic LGBTQI plus activist, HIV activist, and fantastic, absolutely fantastic drag queen. I think that would be the main thing that he'd be most proud of, aside from his works with dogs and the welfare of dogs, because his character Lily Savage is practically beloved over here. Helped introduce drag and that concept into the mainstream. It was basically him and Dame Edna, and he died rather suddenly and quite young. He was only 67, and that was announced by his partner. So we're just very sad about that because it's not been great over here right now, and we needed a bit of good news, and frankly, that has not been forthcoming. And this is just the latest, and I just wanted to mention that in just in memorial of a very fascinating, very funny, very charismatic, very principled person. This is a guy who grew up very working class, very, very poor, and he's maintained that amount of talent for all of his success. And in the face of blistering austerity and corruption by the Tory government for years and years and years. So, and he's never been afraid to speak out against that, like so many other people might have been. He's just an absolutely fantastic person, and we are all less for his loss. And that sombering note, we're going to have some ads. Check them out.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Maybe it's because I've been ill, but I feel like my critic brain has got a few crossed wires because the last film that I saw in the cinema before this one, as you can tell it's been a long time for me, was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And aside from a few problems I did have with it, I thought it was a pretty good film. A lot of people disagreed. Then I go see this film, and I thought it was okay, but not really up to my expectations. And everyone's praising it from here to fucking Timbuktu. Is it me? Am I the problem?
I don't know, because I didn't watch Ant-Man Quantumania, so...
Fair enough, fair enough.
The last movie, we were actually, my fiance and I, we were trying to figure out what the last movie in theaters was that we saw, and I don't know if it was A Quiet Place Part 2 or the Spider-Man movie.
The Spider-Man movie?
The latest one.
The latest
No Way
one.
Home.
Oh, okay, because either way, that's a long time away.
Yeah, well, we're lazy pieces of shit. What can I say?
Well, then, the safety concerns are a real issue. I understand that. And I'm lucky now because the place I've moved to, it's now like a 10-minute walk to the cinema for me. That's fantastic. Cinema I've been going to for years living in Edinburgh. But yeah, this is a movie that I really, really wanted to like. And this movie is not bad. I want to make that very clear right from the start. It doesn't die the death of 1,000 cuts, but it is slightly wounded by the 50 or so cuts. Not even 50, maybe 25. It's got some flaws that I do think people are overlooking, but it's also got some great stuff in it that I does think elevate it beyond the level of mediocre. It is, because mediocre for me is okay, but like a crap okay. Whereas okay is like a good okay. It's not great, it's not terrible, it's a perfectly watchable movie, and I completely get why other people like it. And I do get why other people like this. Especially if you're a Dungeons and Dragons fans, because there are Easter eggs up the wazoo in this film.
Oh yeah, they're all over the place.
Not even Easter eggs, honestly. They're just like not even references, just facts about the world of Dungeons and Dragons, specifically the Forgotten Realms. This is not take place in Kryn or Dragonlance or anything like that, or the outer space things of that, or even Ravenloft, where our campaign is currently going. It is take place on in Faerun, the continent known as Faerun, specifically an area known as the Sword Coast, or at least the western part of Faerun. And it features references to characters, real people and species, and magic from that world. It is recognizably Forgotten Realms Dungeons and Dragons. It's not a generic fantasy world, although for many people, for many general audiences, I'm sure it doesn't appear that way, but the rest of us, we were just going like, "Ooh, I recognize that. Oh, I know that spell. Ooh, they got tabaxi in it. Oh my god!"
Yep.
And even include specific nerdy rules lawyery type references to how certain things work. Like, for example, spells. Oh, I can only cast this once per day. Oh, it has a range of 500 feet. Like, why would you be that specific in mentioning that, except for the fact that in the player's handbook of Dungeons & Dragons, that spell or something like that is described as having a range of 500 feet. magic is kind of very organized in D&D, unless you're a wild magic sorcerer, which one of our characters supposedly is. Frankly, I don't see it. I played wild magic sorcerer once, nothing like this. There was no flumps appearing out of nowhere. But anyway, we're going to get into all of that. We've got to start basically at the beginning. And so we get basically a big old exposition dump by Chris Pine, but it's one that I'm willing to tolerate because it feels very naturalistic within the context of the movie. Basically, we start in the northern realms of Faerun, an area known as Icewind Dale, and we start off with, he's not an orc, is it a troll? Is it a bugbear? I don't know. Be led into this prison, and put into a prison with Chris Pine, and Michelle Rodriguez, and Chris Pine immediately endears me to him because he's knitting a pair of mittens.
Yes.
I mean, that's just delightful. And Michelle Rodriguez is eating a potato, which is funny because eating a potato is just as enthralling and just as an enjoyable experience as most of her acting roles.
Ha ha ha. I really don't have an opinion on her. And I don't watch most of the movies that she's in, so.
You're saving yourself. Here's the thing. Michelle Rodriguez can act when she wants to. She acts very well in this movie 2/3 of the time. The remaining third, she's doing her usual, I kind of look like I'd rather be anywhere shtick. Which is weird because apparently she's a big Dungeons & Dragons fan, has been playing for quite some time. And like I said, the other 2/3 of the movie, she's giving a full commit performance. But other times, maybe she's just got a bit lost in the role because she's playing like this sort of stoic barbarian character. If you don't have an opinion on her, you should be fine. If you can't stand her kind of acting, you're probably going to see more flaws of it than I did. I'm pretty neutral, I guess. I do think she has made some very crap performances, but I also think she's done some okay performances. And this is definitely above okay. Chris Pine I like most of the time anyway. He's done pretty well for me. Didn't like the fact that he was trying to play a big Scottish historical character when he's not Scottish, but that's a rant for another day. Yeah. And the bugbear character starts being very creepy and very, very forward with Michelle Rodriguez. She just immediately decks him and takes him out and goes back to eating a potato. It's a pretty good setup, but the actual exposition that comes in the form of a parole board, where Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine are basically up for parole, and they're basically telling the group of people, judging them, one of which is a dragonborn that isn't CGI.
Yeah, I will say, even though some of the practical effects don't look the best, I appreciated that there were practical effects and not CGI in this movie, even though there is CGI, but I do appreciate that they put in some practical effects.
I think they used practical effects whenever they could,
Yeah.
and it's not always perfect, as you say, but it's still the most average or even crappiest piece of practical effects is still better than some of the best CGI. Obviously, some differences there, like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, for example. That was fantastic, but because your mind believes it's there. I look at that Dragonborn. I look at the other species around that. Earlier, there's a scene where there's like a snake person in one of the cells that the troll person is going past. I fully believe that those things are there because my mind knows, thanks to lack of Uncanny Valley, that it's a real thing that I can touch because it's not CGI, and therefore I'm more likely, unconsciously, to accept that it's a real thing. You can't get that with CGI. Even the most highly detailed CGI still has the Uncanny Valley effect, which is fine because it's kind of difficult to develop at a fucking mammoth gargantuan dragon animatronic. That would be like half the practical effects budgets in of itself. So some things you have to do with CGI, and that works just fine. But it's the fact that they did it and they knew that CGI couldn't do it and they had to do some sort of practical effect for it. That is not only just appreciative, but it does work. It does work. And because this movie did pretty well, and because it's a mainstream movie and because it's gone such acclaim, I'm hoping this will encourage more filmmakers to do this sort of thing. This is something that The Mandalorian and some of the other live-action Star Wars shows have been doing for a little while now when they could get away with it. Works really well. No one would give a shit about Grogu if he was CGI. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But anyway, he goes, Chris Pine, I should give you these characters' names, but you know what? Fuck it, I'm not really going to. I'm going to call them Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez and Justice
Honestly,
Smith.
I don't really remember Chris Pine's character's name.
Edgin or something?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I remember Olga because her last name is like Olga like kills something, which I thought was funny, but like honestly, I don't remember I don't remember their names.
I don't blame you. I do not blame you. And he goes about basically telling his story. He was a member of this faction of spies called the Harpers. I recognize that reference. And he was spying for people, including on these people called the Red Wizards of Thay, something that I don't know a lot about in Dungeons & Dragons, but I have heard of. And basically, he had a wife and a child, but oh no, his wife got killed by the Red Wizards. Oh no! And he was left to bring up his child alone, helped by Michelle Rodriguez's barbarian character, because she got kicked out of her tribe for marrying someone she wasn't supposed to marry. Yasha.
Yeah, you know.
Well,
I mean, to be
people
fair,
at Critical Role are giving them the side eye. I'm just saying.
I mean, to be fair though, like this is one of the things that I didn't have a problem with is like when you think about the backstories of these characters, they are like to a degree super cliche, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, that's the backstory that that somebody would make for their character for a campaign, like 100%. Like, I mean, there have been times where I've made character backstories even before like certain seasons of Critical Role have been out, and then I'll find out one of them like did the exact same backstory as me, and it's like, yeah, you know, it's not as original as you think it is, kind of thing.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong in that. And I am willing to give them some leeway on this. Absolutely. I'm not going to make... Because I've done the same. I'll be honest with you. I've done absolutely the same. And then they decide, you know what? We need to put food on the table. Here's how we do it. We'll steal. And it forms like a heisting gang with himself, Michelle Rodriguez, his daughter... ducked into a life of thievery. This sorcerer, who I guess just turns up, played by Justice Smith, and this con artist named Forge, played by Hugh Grant. And I have to say, when you've got a character that's a slimy, deceitful, but still relatively charming British man, you can do worse than casting Hugh Grant.
Oh yeah, I loved him in this movie.
I feel the sickening threat of brutal honesty, and I'm wildly uncomfortable.
I don't hate Hugh Grant. I don't hate Hugh Grant. I just hate what he represents, because this man with his floppy hair and his stammer and his genteel English attitude fucking ruined it for the rest of us here in the UK. If you have an accent even slightly like his, the comparisons will flow. I'm a tour guide. I'm people from all the world. Have had accusations like that, comparisons like that, fired my way purely for the voice, not for the face. Let's be honest. But he didn't mean to be a stereotype, but he ended up being a stereotype, and I don't like it.
Well, sucks to be you, I guess.
Yes, it does.
Let the rest of us enjoy him.
Sure, absolutely. Although I will say this. I did watch some of the, before this movie came out, some of like the interviews for the cast, and they were all talking about Dungeons & Dragons. Chris Pine is like kind of interested, even though he's not very familiar with it. Michelle Rodriguez is super into it, and he's just from the side looking bored out of his mind until he makes a vaguely sexual joke about a dungeon master, and it's yeah, it's a little bit awkward, but he does a good job with this thing. And basically, they discover that there's this secret hoard of treasure, which has this slate of resurrection, a resurrection stone, or affinity gem or something like that, some sort of bullshit. And he thinks like, oh my god, I could resurrect my dead wife. But they get into that, and unfortunately they're nearly caught by the guards. This wizard, Sophina, who I obviously thought was called Sophia throughout most of the movie, but apparently Sophina, in order to get away, utilize this spell, Time Stop, which means, fuck, is she a level 9 wizard? Holy shit. That's endgame. That's a big deal. And some of them get caught in the time stop, and before he gets captured, Chris Pine says to Hugh Grant, look after my daughter. He's like, don't worry, I will. Runs away. And then they get sentenced to prison for quite some time. The whole time this parole hearing's been going on, they've been asking after this Jonathan. I don't know if it's accent or if he's just called Jonathan, member of the council, who's an Aarakocra, bird person, essentially. It's like, hey, thanks. And he arrives late. It's like, hey, thank goodness you're finally here. They both grab him and jump out the window, using him to get out of the prison, flying essentially. He was not a willing participant in that. As they go, the Dragonborn person says, but we were going to pardon you.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew, just like, okay, I am actually going to like this movie. Like, the problems arise much later, but this was a good starting off point. Big Expedition Dump told relatively naturalistically in a way that makes sense. They stick to what we need to know, and more revelations that come about later on in the film. But they set it up very well. It's funny, it's creative, it's clever, and it sets up the world pretty nicely. And boom, we're off on an adventure. Fantastic. And they manage to escape. They basically discover that Forge has become the Lord of Neverwinter. That's a big old city in D&D. And they're like, holy shit, we should go there and find out about, like my daughter and all this sort of shit. And they go there, and basically something appears to be not quite on the up and up, because his daughter's like, oh, you're back. You abandoned me. What? I didn't abandon you. Turns out Forge is basically like pseudo-adopted her, poisoned her against him, and had basically set them up on the previous thing. Imagine that, a con artist set them up. He's basically, I don't want to say the villain, because the Red Wizards of Thay are arguably the villain in this, but he's the antagonist, the person they've got to get revenge against. And I kind of love it, because Hugh Grant is just doing his usual Hugh Grant thing, because let's be honest, the man hasn't got a fantastic acting range, but he's still ultimately the villain. It's like everyone's seeing him the way I see him. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I was actually surprised because I felt like the trailer, based on the trailer, I thought he was the kind of character that was going to, like, die right away. Like, he was going to be, like, the one person in their group that, like, died in the beginning or something like that. So I was actually surprised to see, oh, no, it's not that he died. It's that he's the bad guy, or he's one of the bad guys.
Yeah. And I love him as a bad guy because he's like the rogue, and he's like a con artist.
Yeah.
And he's just double-crossing everyone to the point where I don't think even he knows what side he's on.
Well, he's on his own side.
He's on his own side. But I really like his pseudo-relationship with Chris Pine's daughter, because he's basically been raising her for the past 2 years, has grown attached to her, but in a horrible way. Like, it's like, oh, I love just having this young mind to shift and mold into my own image. It's actually quite fun. And he thinks that's what fatherhood is. So, like, he's not even sympathetic, but he is actually kind of nice to Chris Pine's daughter.
Yeah.
That gets ruined a little bit later on, but he even just is not overtly mean about Chris Pine to her. Later on, when he tries to have them arrested, he says to his daughter, I'm sorry, he took the Stone of Riches, is not the Stone of Resurrection, and just left without you. I'm so sorry. It's like, and she's like, how could he do this? And Hugh Grant is just like, well, somewhere down the way, after losing your mother, he lost a part of himself. Like, he's not even saying, oh, he's an evil bastard who never loved you. He's saying, no, he's just a broken individual. Oh dear, what a shame. But don't worry, you've always got me. It's so delightfully twisted.
Yep.
It's a good bit of writing, is all I think, at least, in terms of his character. And the movie, I thought was going to be, based on the trailers, much like you, I thought it was going to be about, oh no, we stole something and the bad guys got the thing from us and now we need to go back and get it. Not quite. The thing they need to get is his daughter. They're doing a heist for his daughter. They're planning, essentially, a reverse kidnapping.
Yeah. Yep.
This is fantastic. I actually kind of love that that's the direction we go to go. And it does go to show what Chris Pine's character values. He values his daughter, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have some flaws to overcome. He also wants the stone back to get his wife back, and that's his big character arc. And he's just trying to keep this team together while he does so. And it leads to some really interesting character moments, but it also makes him inherently likable.
Huzzah! A man of quality!
Yeah, I will say one thing that I do like about Chris Pine in general is like he plays really good like fathers in movies. Like I remember watching A Wrinkle in Time, which was not a good movie, but he was such a good dad in that movie. Like I believed that like they were father and daughter and that like how much they loved each other. And I get that same sense from this film.
Absolutely. Even though he doesn't spend a lot of on-screen time with his daughter, he does talk about it even when she's not there. There is a clear motivation there. But in order to get into there, he's got to assemble a team. He's got to get his sorcerer plaque played by Justice Smith. Justice Smith. How can I put this delicately? Justice Smith. We don't sound like that! That is a
lot of anger.
bad accent! No! Stop it! You are not Keanu Reeves. How dare you? I mean, what did you think of the English accent?
I don't really have an opinion on accents. Like, I don't really care.
Well, I care, damn it!
Well, that's because you're British. Like,
yes!
So I'm not, so I don't care. I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's fine.
I'll give him this. I'll give him this. To his credit, the accent did get better as the movie went on, but it's still enough pretty goddamn shit. So I don't know if he just needed time to get familiar with the accent, or if he had a dialect coach or something. But at the end of the movie, it's passable. At the beginning of the movie, it's like nails on a chalkboard. We don't all sound like...
Lord Nelson's trousers, it's a Yeti!
We don't do that.
Okay, but counterpoint. And this is something that I saw in a video last night after I saw the movie. He did incorporate sign language into his spell casting, which I thought was super cool.
See, I didn't even notice that.
I didn't either because I don't know sign language, but I watched a video where he basically like explained how he knew a little bit of sign language, and so he tried to like basically he used I think it was like an interpreter or something, or a coach or something, to incorporate sign language into some of the spell casting.
Because in Dungeons & Dragons, there are potentially 3 components in casting a spell. Verbal, material, and somatic, which is basically arm/finger movements. And so that is a very clever way to incorporate that into it in a very subtle way. Like, again, when we're watching the movie, you and I, we won't notice that, but a person who knows American Sign Language, I'm assuming that's the version of sign language he used, would know that and would recognize that, possibly other people who speak other different kinds of sign language. So... or use other kinds of sign language. So that's very clever. And honestly, in terms of his just raw performance, I was so worried we were going to see the Justice Smith we saw in that fucking Jurassic Park movie. You know, the whiny, screamy one who no one liked.
I didn't see that movie, so, you know. I only know him from Detective Pikachu.
Well, he's more like that version in that he's
Because
got some things to overcome and he's clearly a bit insecure, but you know what, he's also a real person with flaws and hopes and triumphs, and he's actually kind of enjoyable. And I was worried I wasn't going to like him, because when we see him after, you know, the flashback from the parole board hearing, he's doing like prestidigitation, like, ooh, the smell of fresh cut grass in front of an audience of people. And he's like, oh, he's a crap sorcerer, he's a crap wizard, and crap magician, crap magic user, whatever you want to call him. And then you see, oh, he's actually pickpocketing using magic, everyone's like jewelry unbeknownst to them, and just distract them with his terrible magic. That's really cool. That's really clever. And even then, when he gets caught, he tries to reverse gravity in the whole fucking building that they're in a really, probably nausea-inducing scene for some people, but I found it quite cool. Problem is, later in the movie, they said, oh, I was doing magic, but it went wild. He's a wild magic sorcerer? For those of you who don't know, wild magic sorcerer is a sorcerer that can cast spells, but the spell has a chance to go wild, and therefore something completely random happens. Like I mentioned earlier, a bunch of flumps, these fucking marshmallow people floating around would appear out of nowhere. You could set yourself on fire, turn someone else into a potted plant, grow blue feathers on the top of your head, which explode when you sneeze. Things like that. Creative, clever stuff, which doesn't happen throughout the rest of the movie. This is one instance of wild magic. I don't know if it's from, like, a different version of Dungeons & Dragons, because I only know 5th edition. Do you know, like, 3.5 or 4th edition or anything like that?
I don't know any of that.
So maybe it's different in one of those things, but I don't know. If they were going to say, use wild magic, they could have done more of that later on in the movie, and they don't. And it was a little bit disappointing, but ultimately the character was perfectly fine. I just didn't want to have to listen to the accent for the whole fucking movie. It's really, really, really annoying. But you know what else is annoying, Jillian?
What?
Ads! Here's some right now. So Simon says that they would need to get a wild person who can wild shape to help them up the heist. A druid. A druid is a person who's like nature powers who can shapeshift into other animals, not monsters like an owlbear. Nitpick, nitpick, nitpick. But they decide to go and recruit this person he knows called Doric, who's a tiefling druid who can wild shape. Doesn't have any other nature powers, frankly, just wild shapes. Fine, fair enough. They're scaling it down for simplicity in the movie. I get that. Here's my problem. Tieflings are basically demon people. They are either descended from demons or like their parents made a pact with a demon. They got a lot of like demonic energy infused inside them, and so they come out with horns and tails and things like that. They're not necessarily evil, but because they have a relationship with demonicness, with demons and the hells and things like that, that means they face a little bit of ostracism and even outright bigotry in this world. That's part of the law. And in fact, Doric says that her parents abandoned her because they couldn't stand to have a tiefling for a daughter. At no point do they say what I just said in the movie. Like, they don't explain what a tiefling is. We're just left to, like, you and I know what a tiefling is because we know what fucking Dungeons & Dragons is. But there's a lot of other people, general audiences, who won't know what a tiefling is. And they're not going to have a clue what that means. Like, is that someone with red hair? Or is that something to do with the tail? Why do you have horns? Things like that. All this could be explained briefly, and it just isn't. It just isn't.
Also, don't tieflings, like, technically have to have, like, the weird colored skin? Isn't that, like, part of their description? Or, because I didn't even realize that she was a tiefling until somebody said she was a tiefling.
Yeah, it's... Honestly, I think that is a rule within the law, but it's not a hard rule per se. Tieflings are varied, like a lot of others, niche races like that. So you can have... Most tieflings have different colored skins, but some tieflings might not. Maybe she's only quarter tiefling, who knows? But I'm fine with them changing that. What I'm not fine is them not properly explaining what a tiefling is and what that means. Because if I'd known nothing about Dungeons & Dragons and nothing about tieflings, I wouldn't know why being a tiefling was bad and why her parents would then suddenly abandon her. And it's... there's a little bit subtextually, subtly that you could gain, but for the most part, you've got absolutely no idea. And if you don't know what's going on...
Here's me on the scale of caring. I'm at 0.
You've got to give us a reason to care with proper context. And they don't do that. It's one of the few times in the movie when they don't do that. And it's very infuriating, consider she has a lot of screen time and is a very interesting character. Because her parents abandoned her, she fell in with the Wood Elves, who are just kind of background characters, to be honest with you. But, oh no, Forge, like Hugh Grant's character, is chopping down all their forests, so she agrees to help them in order to stick it to to him. And so the team is basically assembled. But in order to get to the vault where they got the stone, they've got to get past a Mordenkainen lock. Mordenkainen is like this super powerful wizard in D&D. And this means, for the group, well...
Tonight at 11.
Doom!
No way they're getting past that. But they need a bit of help, like a Helmet of Disjunction. And this is where all the people who have played Dungeons and Dragons for a prolonged period of time realize, okay, side quest, fetch quest.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's the whole campaign. We're basically watching an entire campaign on, like, a speed run.
Pretty much, yeah. And I didn't mind that fact. Other people may not have a great tolerance for that sort of thing. That's fun for us, especially if we go to fun places and meet fun people and maybe kill them. Hooray! And I love this. So apparently, the Helmet of Disjunction was once kept from the Red Wizards of Thay by Michelle Rodriguez's tribe. So there was a big battle that took place 100 years ago. She needs to find out where those people are buried. She goes to like this village to her ex-husband's house. They broke up because she couldn't stand being away from a tribe, even though she left the tribe for him. And it's a tiny Bradley Cooper.
Yes, it's a little halfling. Or gnome. I assume it was a halfling.
I think halflings are shorter than gnomes in general. He is quite short. I wish they'd have him like barefoot or different ears or something like that. But it's just Dominic Cooper. No, not Dominic. Sorry, Bradley Cooper as a little hobbit person who was married to a much taller Michelle Rodriguez and is now married to equally tall barbarian woman. Clearly has the type.
Don't kink shame me!
Well, they both have a type, as you find out.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's kind of funny at first, but you quickly get over that and realize, oh, he's actually a real person. He plays it kind of straight, and there is a little bit of chemistry there, and you can see how they're both quite sad that it just didn't work out. And it actually gets a little bit sad after a while. And it's just like, oh, but they don't dwell in it too long. Then comes the funniest part of the movie.
Yes.
This is amazing. Simon knows a spell, Speak with Dead, that allows him to ask questions to dead people, and they basically go around a graveyard full of a century-old rotting corpses, asking dead people questions and accidentally overusing their questions or underusing their questions. And it's fucking hilarious because you know that if you haven't done this in a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, you could do this in a campaign. We've done similar things to this, haven't we?
Have we? I don't know if we've done, like, Speak with Dead. Did we speak
Not
with
that
Dead?
specific thing, but we've done pretty stupid shenanigan exploits as well, haven't we?
Oh, yeah.
It's...
My favorite was the guy that fucking died in the bathtub, and they're like, so then you went to the battle. He was like, no, I died there. That's my brother you want.
It's just everything about it is pure comedy gold, and yet they also have interspersed with like cool battle scenes and really good effects for like the dead rotting corpses.
Yeah.
But I think the voices for the dead rotting corpses were done by Australian comedy group Auntie Donna, and I've heard the name. I'm not very familiar with them, but they do a great job, and it's a whole lot of fun, and it reminds you, it's the Guardians of the Galaxy rule. These people are not necessarily the stalwart heroes that you know. They are fuck-ups, and they can fuck up, and this is a prime example of that, and it's really cool. I'm glad they included that. Eventually, they get a handle on the location of the helm that's going to help them get rid of the Mordenkainen lock, and when you know it, it's in the hands of fucking guy from Bridgerton.
Yes, I honestly feel like this is like, if not my favorite character in the movie, one of my favorite characters. This dude is hilarious.
Life is good, but it can be better.
I was so afraid that they were going to make this guy holier than thou, stick in the mud like most paladins are. But, you know, this guy, played by... So I can get this guy's name. Regé Jean Page, Like, his character's name is equally difficult to say. Zenk Yendar? I don't know. The Paladin. I'm just going to call him the Paladin. I'm sorry. Names are hard. Okay? The Paladin has the helm, but he's also, like, completely humorless. He is like a fantasy version of Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yep. I just love how, like, because, like, I could totally see, again, this is one of the reasons why I think the movie gets away with a lot for me, is that, like, I could totally see somebody deciding to be a paladin and playing the character in this way.
Yeah, it works, though. It doesn't feel forced or contrived because the actor playing him just leans into it, does a good job, and knows when to play it straight but knows when to play it serious, and has a lot of fun with it. He's even got a bit of a tragic backstory. Turns out that the Sofina person was basically an acolyte of this guy who was not Vecna, big surprise to me, who took over Thay with like this dark necromantic ceremony that corrupted people and turned them into basically zombies. He wants to purge the world of the living and replace them with zombies. Honestly, as far as villain motivations go, it's kind of threadbare. That's why I'm kind of glad we've got the Hugh Grant character, because it provides more solid and much more relatable motivations, because he's motivated by his pseudo daughter and, you know, money. We can all get behind that. I can't really get behind wanting to turn everyone dead and into zombies. But that scene, though, it's funny because this paladin character is so funny, and yet that scene is so tragic and so fucking scary.
Yeah.
Because you don't see people getting turned into zombies. They're just covered by this mist. And then they lunge out from the mist, covered in these weird eldritch tattoos. And it's like the same people you just saw alive. And it's done really, really effectively. This film does not have a tone issue. Because it swings from one tone to the next, to funny, to epic, to scary, perfectly. It flows in from one tone to the next, from scene to scene, as and when it needs to. It's not jarring in any way. That's very hard to pull off, and they did it masterfully.
Oh, yeah, I love the tone of this film.
It works really well, and it's a lot of fun to watch because I like comedy films. I like epic films. I don't really like scary films, but I can appreciate them. But it's nice to have variety in the tone that feels not like a mishmash of tone, but rather just a cohesive story that has different peaks and valleys and things like that. And some people manage to do it very well, and some people can't. Even some of the people who can do it well fail occasionally. Marvel. Anyway. And they get back that story, and it turns out to get the help, they need to go into the fucking Underdark, and that's when I started to have PTSD flashbacks to when my first D&D character died in the Underdark.
Again, sucks to be you.
Yeah, I feel like... Okay, so they say, he says, we need to go to the Underdark, and they're obviously quite not keen on that. But they never go into real details about why that is. I feel like saying, okay, I don't really want to go in the place with fucking creepy underground dwellers and also a race of evil elves that like to enslave people. Like, we never see the drow, the dark elves, in this movie. I feel like a reference could have been made, just for context's sake. It's not as important as making why Doric is a tiefling and things like that, and why that's important. But a little thing like that would have been appreciated. I feel very grateful saying that because there's lots of other great references throughout the movie. But I feel like that was one that could have been appropriate. Would you agree, or did you not mind that much?
I don't really care that much because I feel like so many people have done so many different things now with drows in terms of like their backstory. Like, it's been molded into something different. So I don't really have an issue with them not bringing up like their origin.
Mm-hmm. A follow-up question, Jillian. Do you actually care about anything?
No.
Okay.
Like I said, I didn't really, like, yeah, this movie has faults, but, like, it didn't really bother me. So
You know what? I kind of wish I had your level of apathy. I really do. My brain is always on all the time. I can't help but care, and it's not fun.
you know what it is?
Really?
It's when it's like a dumb, fun popcorn movie like this, I don't really care. But it's when it's a movie that's trying to be pretentious or like trying to like have a message and like an important meaning, that's when I'll get my bitch on, because that has to be done right. And on the opposite side of things, if you're trying to be pretentious or like act like holier than thou, I mean, I'm gonna find ways to slam your ass down. But this is just like, fun popcorn movie, like whatever, who cares?
So you get mad about films, or you get more invested in films like The Whale, as opposed to that was actually sorry I say that was a film I saw recently. It wasn't Ant-Man Quantumania.
Yeah, I haven't seen The Whale yet. I really want to, but
I do recommend it.
yeah, I'm waiting for it to like be on one of those platforms for free.
Okay, sure, I get
But
it.
like, okay, like Phantom Thread, that one I can't stand that movie for so many
Daniel
reasons.
Day-Lewis film.
Yeah, like fuck that movie, honestly. Like something like that, I will get very annoyed with, and I won't shut up about. But like this, again, I'm like, whatever, it's fine. It's not hurting anybody.
Daniel Day-Lewis hasn't been important for film since 2003. There, I said it. He is, like, I say, he's a great actor, overhyped, overrated. Still good, but overrated.
I mean, he's not even my problem with the movie, but sure.
He's all I know about the Phantom Thread. I saw the trailer for that and I thought, like, much like you, like, wow, that looks pretentious as fuck.
Yeah, it's
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh my god, it's so annoying. Anyway.
I get that. I do. I mean, I don't like the phrase popcorn movie personally, just because you can have like fun, silly, even dumb films, like you say, but I don't think that precludes them from taking it seriously because, and this is just my reasoning for it, I don't expect anyone to agree with me. The film industry is just that, an industry. It's a product that's being sold to us. We're paying money for it. And products can come in different shapes and sizes, different varieties. But if you're selling it for money, I'm going to take it I'm going to take it a little bit seriously. In the same way that I would take, like, just say, random example, Step Brothers seriously. It's a comedy movie. I think it's an excellent comedy movie. I take it seriously as a comedy movie. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I take the Dungeons and Dragons movie, like, seriously, but at the same time, I acknowledge that, like, what it's trying to do as a movie is just to entertain you and give you, like, escapism. Similar to how Dungeons and Dragons, the game, actually is, like, it's in part about, like, escaping. Like, that's why people play the game sometimes, or why people read fantasy novels, is wanting that escape. And so I feel like that's what this movie does. I feel like it accomplishes its main goal, which is to offer that escapism, which is why I'm not super, like, mad at the flaws. Whereas, for instance, like Thor Love and Thunder, that movie was trying to be a comedy. It was basically trying to be Thor Ragnarok all over again. And in my opinion, it doesn't achieve that. So I didn't enjoy that movie.
No, I completely get that. You're absolutely right on that regard. And I agree. I think it does achieve that goal of escapism.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I don't like it when people call it mindless escapism because there's one phrase I hate beyond popcorn movie. I don't like the phrase, just turn your brain off for it. Like, you have to turn your brain off to enjoy it. No, I need my brain. My brain is important to me. It does all my thinking for me. And so I refuse to turn my brain off for movies. I fully get that other people can do, but I shouldn't have to do that and to enjoy the film. The good news is with this film, I didn't turn off my brain because it literally never shuts up. And I still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So you can achieve that balance of escapism without being mindless. You don't have to have a pretentious message, but you can not be as up there on the thematic level as, say, The Whale. And that's fine. We have blockbusters for a reason. I like variety. I like different films doing different things. It's just I don't like people saying, oh, it's a popcorn movie, therefore it's allowed to be shit. And I'm not saying that's what you were implying or anything like that. It's just I don't like when people make that argument.
Yeah, no. I agree with that sentiment.
Good. It's nice to be agreed with. It's a rare occasion for me. But anyway, they go to the Underdark to get the helmet. But Sophina, here's the thing. She's clearly working for the Red Wizards of Thay. She's working with Hugh Grant's character, but she clearly doesn't like him very much.
Yeah.
And he is just like clearly terrified of her, but just like doing his best to stay alive and get what he wants. But she summons a bunch of like these Red Wizard assassin people, like these undead assassin people, to go down to the Underdark and kill them, but not before killing all the people that let them escape after a previous spy attempt. And the leader of the assassins is Dralis, played by Jason Wong, and he does a great job of being like this very intimidating character who can't die. You defeat him, he's just going to pop back up and rise again. And that's why it's a good job they got a paladin on hand, because you want to defeat undead, you get a paladin, generally speaking. And they go down the Underdark to get the helm. It discovers the staff they got with them, they picked up from Bradley Cooper's house, is a walking staff that is actually a fucking portal gun.
Yeah. We've used those.
That's really dumb. But he's so cool! But that's so dumb!
Why not? Why not? Why the fuck not? And they use that to get through the Underdark. They manage to get the helm.
Wait. You're missing one of the best parts of the whole movie, where they have to cross that bridge. And the whole thing gets fucked up. That scene was so funny to me. Oh my god. If you want to set it up.
Paladin Man goes through this extended explanation of how they can safely cross a bridge. You go over these steps in odd numbers, but then you get half a point, even number, blah, 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 blah. Justice Smith accidentally steps on the bridge and it collapses right there in front of them.
The thing is like this was shown in the trailer, but what they didn't show was the whole part of the convoluted way you have to cross the bridge. And again, I was thinking in my head, this is something that a new DM would think, oh, this is a great puzzle and how I'm going to get somebody to cross the bridge, not realizing how fucking confusing it is, and like how nobody would understand that, but they're like, no, this is a great puzzle, and then and it gets fucked up so easily.
It's even if you don't think of that, I didn't think of that at the time, it's still funny, and that's what's great, is because funny, you can appreciate on different levels depending on your viewpoints. That's so rare to find in films like this these days. Usually just this one thing, this is what it means, boom, you either get it or you don't. We can appreciate on different levels, from the comedic level, but also like the metatextual, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but as you say, DM overthinking things way, it's so much fun. It is an awful lot of fun. They get the helm, assassins show up, you know what else shows up? Fucking Big Chongus Dragon!
Yeah, when I saw the big dragon, I was like, if my one cat was a dragon, this would be her. Just this fat, like, fucking waddling dragon.
It's an absolute unit of a dragon. It's been down there in the Underdark for ages and it's eaten so many things. It's a fact. I never thought I'd see a fat dragon. Here we are. I am so glad we've seen it. It's absolutely cool. Because let's be honest, dragons these days, they're kind of over-designed. Yeah. Like, I love the dragons in Legend of Vox Machina, but they can clearly have had to compensate for all the different styles of dragons that have been done over the years in popular culture. This movie just says, absolute unit of a dragon. Big Chungus dragon.
The dragon is like in a guide, like in D&D. Like this fat dragon does exist, and it can't fly and shit. Because I looked it up because I thought, because I like you, like I was like, oh my god, this is such a good idea of like a fat dragon. And then I realized, oh wait, it's actually in Dungeons and Dragons. It's just that nobody uses it anymore, or at least nobody that I played with uses him. I think this is a PSA. People use the fat dragon. It's funny.
Fat dragon. It is really, really funny. Especially funny because suddenly evil wizard assassins are also running from Big Fat Dragon, and he eats one of them, but they can't die, so, like, how does that work?
Stop! He's already dead!
I don't know. I don't know.
They're just
But it's
gonna
funny
live the
that
rest of their lives in the stomach, you know?
well, this
Have
is
a-
my
have a
home
little-
now.
have a
I
little
live
party.
here. We all live in a red fat dragon's stomach, a red fat dragon's belly, a red fat dragon's belly. I don't know. But they have to escape him, and they manage to escape him, like, through, like, this lake that was just above them. The Underdark, are they, like, just in the, like, the very upper echelons of the Underdark? They have to be.
Yeah.
Because, here's the thing, this is why I mentioned the Drow earlier, because they go past what is clearly a Drow city, a Drow outpost. We don't see any Dark Elves or anything like that, they just go right past it. Past a little edge of, like, these brain creatures that devour an intellect, they go past them. That's just insulting. Like, yeah, but there's no reference to Mind Flayers or the Drow or anything like that, they just go right past it. But the Underdark is like miles and miles and miles below the surface of the Earth. It is like that's why the 5th edition adventure that takes place in it is called Out of the Abyss. It is the pittiest of all the pits. How are they able to breach up into a lake like that? I mean, creative and clever way to get out of that situation, but still. Again, nitpick. I do grant nitpick. They manage to get out of there, and they decide we'll go during these big, like, death games that are happening right now. They've been reinstated for some reason. I don't know. Here's why they've been reinstated, because Hugh Grant is using all the visitors' like gambling money to store in his vault, and he's going to sneak off with it and things like that. They then realize in order to get into the vault, they need to use the helm, like they said, but they've got to attune to the helm. Justice Smith's character has to attune to the helmet, meaning he gets contacted by the spirit, I guess, of his ancient ancestor, who's an actual D&D character. I don't know much about the character, but very much a real thing. Pretty cool design as well for this character. But he can't attune. He keeps on getting, like, the helmet knocked off him and getting thrown across. He has a big crisis of conscience, and I'm thinking, like, okay, so we must be nearing the 3rd act, because this is this last moment! They all have the big whiny breakdown. As soon as the paladin leaves, I thought he was going to be with them the whole way through, but no,
yeah,
he's just
I was so sad when he left. I was like, no, this is my favorite character. But I do appreciate that they made him walk in a completely straight line, so...
Like, I mean, there's a funny scene where it's just like, is he going to move around the rock that he's about to go? Nope, he's going over the rock. There he goes. And it is funny, but I was a little sad to see him go.
Well, this is a kick in the knickers.
And then they have the almost lost moment, but they eventually pull through. Little things like that. It's just, half the problem is, there's nothing wrong with this scene. There's nothing wrong with them realizing, okay, we need to get over our problems and just... Yeah, Chris Pine gives a whole speech about how he fails and he's going to keep on failing because the minute he gives up, that's when he will truly have failed. And it's a perfectly good speech and he does it very well. I 100% believe him. I've seen the scene before. And one of the things you're taught when you're doing, when you're studying film is that there's nothing original under the sun, that we're all telling the same stories over and over again. And as filmmakers, the thing you do is you try and trick the audience into believing that they're seeing something for the first time. And I'm sorry, for this movie, that did not happen for me. I liked it, I enjoyed it, but I was painfully aware of the tropes and how I have seen these things multiple times before. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe I'm just too hyper aware. Maybe I've seen too many movies, but I was so aware of this. And this is my biggest criticism of the movie. If you've seen a movie, you've seen this movie. That's my problem with it. That's my big main, not nitpick problem with it. It fails to suspend my disbelief and convince me that I haven't seen this a million times before. And that is a problem, I believe.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I could see where you're coming from, but again, I think for me, because there is that, like, meta contextuality of, like, playing Dungeons and Dragons, like, a lot of these things that I know I've seen before work for me, because I'm also seeing it as, like, if this was a campaign that people were playing, like, I could totally believe that all of these things would happen to them. Like, you think it's a cliche, but, like, it's really not as cliche as you think it is, because people are just rolling really bad in certain moments, or they're rolling really good in certain moments. Or, like, even the Paladin, I'm like, oh, well, this is the moment where the DM was like, I guess they need an NPC to help them out with this shit, because they're gonna get fucked if they don't have one coming with them.
I mean, you're absolutely right, and I'm glad you saw that way. I want you to put a pin in that thought, because I want to bring it up later, because I think you've really gotten onto something there. But they have the, blowout, and then they get back together in the space of a couple of minutes, and then go back. And then what follows is them trying to get into the vault, because they decided, okay, we can't use the helm, let's use this other way. We've got the star fucking portal guns, which is also another magic item that we kind of used in our campaign.
I was going to say, we've used that. We stole it off your character's dead body, right? Didn't your character originally have it, and then we took it?
Yeah, my character bought that, and then when he turned... Okay, so my character went for a bit of a crisis of identity, and they made us on the pressurized decision to join the bad guy. Before he even had a chance to explain his motivations to the rest of the team, they immediately set upon him.
Okay, let's be clear. When we first met your character, we literally said, hey, we've been betrayed by a person before, which was your first character. And we are letting you know right now, if you do anything that betrays us, we are going to immediately kill you. And your character was like, yeah, that's fine. And then you would have betrayed us. And then, so what did we do? We did exactly what we said we were going to do to you.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
I was warned.
You were 100% warned.
Didn't even let me explain myself.
No.
Anyway. No explanation necessary. I get it. And
the funny thing is like, we have to do, sometimes if we do character recaps, we get like a point of inspiration. Charlotte, my character, I had her writing in her character recaps like this, like since the dinner with Strahd, I was like, this motherfucker is gonna betray us. I can just sense it. He's gonna fucking betray us. She fucking knew before you even knew that you were gonna fucking betray us.
Character betrayal, that was planned. I envisioned a couple of different scenarios depending on what other people did, but I organized it with Alex, the dungeon master. Like, if this happens, my character is going to betray the team. Is that okay? Yes, it is. Cool. We set it all up. It was planned weeks in advance. Not with the second character. That was a spur-of-the-moment decision that I honestly didn't think was going to result in death, but here we are. But you saw it coming, like you say. Anyway, they used the portal gun in a very extended scene to try and get them onto the luggage that's going into the thing. And again, this is a prime example of trying to bluff your way into succeeding in Dungeons & Dragons.
Yes, exactly.
This reminds me of a different campaign I did years ago when I first started playing. We were on a sinking ship because it got fucking Kamehameha'd by a dragon, and we needed to get from the ship to shore. Some of us decided to swim for it, but then someone else says, no, we've got like a fucking big crossbow ballista thing on the boat. Let's use that to twang ourselves over to the shore. Fucking hell, it kind of worked though.
Yeah.
Because in Dungeons & Dragons, if you roll high enough, that shit can work. And we won't go into the whole details of how they do that. All I would say is it's convoluted, hilarious, and really clever as well. It's an awful lot of fun. That ends up not working, so they decide to go another way into the building. I love this. Oh my god. So they use an illusion of Chris Pine, because he's like the bard character, singing, but the illusion starts to go wrong.
Yes.
It's delightfully horrifying.
Yep.
I can't even adequately explain it. It's like he's melting and expanding at the same time. And it's like watching the human equivalent of a cassette tape being slowly mangled by your VCR in real time, in real life, in front of you. It's absolutely amazing. That was CGI for that. that is purposely doesn't look fantastic. They manage to get in. Turns out it's a bit of a trap because Ford fully expected them, and it turns out the games are a big front for something. He's shipping the gold off somewhere else. Where to? This was the point where I realized, the wizard lady, Seraphina? No, Sophina, weird name, is going to do the same ritual that we saw earlier in the Paladin's backstory to turn everyone fucking undead. I noticed that right from that point. But I didn't really... It was annoying because, again, the same thing. I've seen this movie before. But also, like, the performances are just so charming. Hugh Grant's line looks like, I don't actually want to see you die, so I'm going to leave the room. Like, that was in all the trailers, but it's still a fucking hilarious line. And it didn't convince me that I hadn't seen it before, but it did not distract me. It made me not care as much. You know?
I guess. I don't know.
Maybe I was desperately trying to find a way to like the movie, maybe. And then they say, hey, just killing us like this? Oh, this wouldn't be fun for you. Put us in the games. Give us a chance to fight with dignity. And Sophina convinces him to do so, and I'm not sure why. Because she wanted, like...
Because the DM realized that they had failed, and they were giving them another chance. So they let... And the bard rolled a really high persuasion check.
Pinning it. The only explanation I can think of in universe without the metatextual stuff you're going on is that Sophina wanted, like, I guess 4 more people to turn into like a necromantic army.
I think she was just pissed off that, like, they had thwarted the plan so far, so she wanted them to die, like, miserably.
Possibly. Either that or, like, Hugh Grant's character wasn't a big fan of it, and she just wanted to piss him off because she keeps on saying to, like, her evil overlord boss, I hate that guy. He is so fucking annoying. Like, so maybe that's why. They get put into these, like, death games that people are just apparently all for. A bunch of different teams playing the game, including one that is very clearly the characters from the 80s or 90s, I can't remember when it was, Dungeons & Dragons cartoon series.
Yep.
And they're not even, like, characters. We don't see them speak. They're just in the background. If you are just a generic person who doesn't know about that shit, you're not going to notice. It's going to be fine. But I went to see this in IMAX. It was a pretty empty cinema. I swear I was the only person who pointed and went, oh!
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't really know the cartoon, so I didn't recognize them at first, but, like, I heard about it after, like, yeah, they're in there. I was like, okay, cool. No wonder why their costumes look so weird.
Maybe that's why. I hope that wasn't too distracting. I've never watched the cartoon. I just know of it through, like, geek osmosis. But then the games happen, and it's really cool. There's, like, a shifting labyrinth with Displacer Beast and gelatinous cubes and all sorts of nonsense like that. Until they finally manage to use the gelatinous cube to their advantage and get out of there to go and get Forge. And they do that, manage to get onto his boat. Before he arrives, he's trying to sneak out of the city with Chris Pine's daughter. And then when he sees that they've got the boat and they're trying to convince her to go with him, he holds a knife to her throat. Now, I am conflicted about this choice of character development. On the one hand, it makes perfect sense because, like I said earlier, he is on his side, no one else is. It's selfish reasons for, like, pseudo-adopting her, and he's, like, using her as a pawn. He only really cares about himself. On the other hand, I don't know. Did you feel like he wouldn't actually do that? Like, there was one shred of humanity in him, and, like, he wouldn't actually do that. Like, he's a lying, cowardly, cheating, greedy bastard, but he couldn't even pretend to hurt her. And, like, even over 2 years, he might have convinced himself, like, oh, yeah, I'm just molding her to my image and things like that. But actually, over time, he has come to genuinely care about her or something.
Yeah, that was the one scene that did feel a little off to me. But I don't know. I guess when people are in like desperate situations, they do act out of character.
Maybe, or maybe that was truly in character and that we were just deluded for believing it altogether. I don't know. I feel like either they could have made this a bit more interesting and like have it be a bit more ambiguous. Just like, was he doing it just to get the gold, or was he merely pretending and he could never have hurt her? Like he was just like bluffing, in which case he was still held a knife to her throat. I don't know. Feel like there's something there that wasn't fully explored. I think they were kind of eager to wrap things up by the end. Because you think that's the end? Oh no, they're sailing off into the horizon, and then they see the horrible ritual starting up behind them. And they realize, oh shit, we got to go back. Rather easily. I expected a bit more pushback by some of them, just saying like, oh, it's not our fight, you know, who cares? We got our riches, we got our gold, let's go. But no, they all decide, yeah, we need to go. What's funnier about this is, though, that earlier, the Paladin made Chris Pine swear that he would distribute the gold that he got from the heist to the people of Neverwinter, and he does just that.
Yep.
With a portal in the boat onto this big balloon with Hugh Grant's face in it, which was a fucking nightmarish viewing experience for me, let me tell you. He spreads it out through the streets of Neverwinter, forcing people to leave the stadium to go after the gold. I guess the evil, demonic root-like things spreading down from the sky wasn't enough of a warning sign for them. But this bothers evil wizard lady because she's like, no, I need people for the ritual. Oh, shit. Big fight scene happens between all of them. A little bit of CGI used, but it's... You know what I liked about the fight scene between all of them and Sophina? It was very kinetic. Did you notice that?
I
feel every blow.
I loved the 6-second shit where they were all like going at her and stuff, and she was using her spells, and it was all happening like instantaneously. And again, the meta-ness, you're thinking in your mind like each round of combat is 6 seconds. So you're like actually seeing how visually how a battle in Dungeons and Dragons would play out.
And yet, from general audiences, they probably wouldn't notice that. It's just an average fight scene, but it's not shit going all the time. There's a rhythm to it. Like you say, a beat to it, 6 seconds, and you feel every blow, you see every spell, and they're using spells creatively. Although I will say, Justin Smith uses like the hand of stone to fight against her demonic like flesh hand thing. They uses the hand to like catch himself. Like he's landing on solid stone still. Just because it's a hand doesn't make that any less like that's gonna shatter something.
Yeah.
Maybe reading too much into it. But then she starts to use the time stop spell again. Oh no. And he's like, oh no, I can't counter that. And they all get trapped within the spell, except they don't. Turns out his daughter has like this invisibility necklace, which was shown right at the very beginning of the movie, in the flashback we saw earlier. And they get one of these like magic dampening cuffs that was shown earlier in like the games publishment of the movie on her, so she can't use the magic anymore. I can lay her out, except not quite, because it's Doric, the druid person, shifting into an owlbear form and fucking murdering her.
Yeah.
Brutally. Oh my god.
And that's when I got mad.
Yeah, I remember thinking when I was watching this scene, I was thinking like, this is pretty fucking violent.
Yeah.
At first hilariously so, but then it keeps on going, just like, oh god. I wish I hadn't used that Simpsons clip already, because that's pretty fucking violent. But then they managed to defeat her, but oh no, Michelle Rodriguez is fatally wounded. When the fuck did that happen? And mentioned earlier in the film that there is no way to save a person who's been stabbed with a red wizard blade. That's how Chris Pine's wife died. And like, oh no, she's going to die. And it's like, oh wow, they're really killing off the character. Oh wow, that's... Wait a minute, they got a fucking resurrection stone. Oh, piss.
Yeah, I mean, once when they brought up the resurrection stone the first time, and I realized that like the Hugh Grant's character hadn't used it in 2 years, I'm like, oh, okay, so basically somebody in this group is gonna die, and they're gonna have to use it for that person instead of the wife.
Yeah, you realised that a lot earlier than I did, but when it came about, I was just like, okay. But then they go through, unfortunately, a very untimely explanation for why they have to use it, because they do a couple of flashbacks to some scenes we've seen before, but some scenes we haven't, where it turns out that, like, oh, Michelle Rodriguez's character was more of a mother to Chris Pine's daughter than Chris Pine's wife actually was, because she died when she was a baby. And so she never really got a chance to know her. And then they're like, okay, this is the right thing to do, even if it means losing my wife purposefully. Because that's the thing. It's always been... Chris Pine has always wanted to resurrect his wife through the context of his wife.
Yeah.
Not necessarily his daughter's mother. And it's very interesting they gave that explanation. And that, as I said before, that leads into his character flaw very nicely. Even though he's doing something that is ostensibly altruistic and understandable, it's also just a little bit selfish. Understandably so, but selfish. And then they've got this other opportunity to save someone that his daughter actually cares about. He claimed he was doing it for his daughter earlier. Really was doing it for himself. Good opportunity for him to actually do that. That's great. The problem is, those scenes we mentioned in other flashbacks, most of them weren't present in the movie. We're getting a lot of this, like, oh, she was the real mother to her all along, very late in the game. There were many opportunities where they could have further expanded upon that, and they didn't.
Oh, I disagree. I completely understood that from the beginning. Because they do show enough scenes for me in the beginning where it's very clear that that was her, like, mom figure. And even, like, the way that the daughter, like, even at times, like, the daughter is asking, like, oh, where's Holga? Like, she doesn't seem to care about her dad, but she's asking about Holga. She's looking to Olga to, like, for, like, confirmation on certain things. She has a nickname for her. Like, it just felt like, I don't know. It didn't seem out of left field for me.
As you say that, I do remember, like, the first time when Chris Pine and Holga returned to her after being in prison for 2 years, she runs to Michelle Rodriguez and hugs her before her dad.
Yeah.
That's partially due to Forge's influence, but maybe I was just missing some stuff. Maybe it was a bit too subtle for me. I feel like they could have gone a little bit extra, but you're probably right. They probably didn't need to, and maybe I was just too distracted by all the other things going on. But they used the stone, and Michelle Rodriguez is like,
JK, not dead, lol.
She's back. And meanwhile... So... Hugh Grant is now on the lam. He's running out of the city with this single, like, gold chalice. And who does he get approached by?
I'm trying to remember. I remember he gets approached by people, but I don't remember who it was.
It's the Paladin.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, my favorite
Your
character.
favorite character, Jillian.
It wasn't my favorite moment of him, so that's why I don't remember.
He just kind of show up out of nowhere.
Yeah, he just, like, shows
reason.
it. Like, that could have been anybody, like, honestly.
Remember me? I don't know. Like, they could have been one of the Red Wizards, just like, or something like that, to be a bit of an anonymous thing. But then it cuts to Hugh Grant at his own parole hearing in the same prison at the beginning of the movie, explaining that Serafina put a curse of the previous Lord of Neverwinter, who then woke up, undid all of the stupid crap that Hugh Grant's character did, named, like, the heroes of the movie actual fucking heroes with fucking medals and things like that. In fact, the person giving the medal to Michelle Rodriguez is a halfling.
Yes. I said they both had a type.
Yep. Hey, we praise a short king around here. Yes. And it seems like things are going pretty well for them. Then Jonathan comes into the room and he tries to grab him and jump out of the window, only they bricked up the wall. And he's like, oh God, I'm so sorry. And that's how the movie ends. Although there is... was there a mid-credits scene? Oh yes, there was a mid-credits scene with one of these skeletons from earlier still asking, so someone asked me a question, I'm still alive. Oh shit. Funny way to camp off the movie. No post-credits scene. Pretty good credits scene overall. And remember that pin I mentioned earlier?
Yeah, sure.
Time to take it out, because here's what I was kind of hoping how the movie would end. It would then do all the scenes like we just talked about, and then it would sort of rise up from out of the clouds, and it would see that this whole thing was a game of Dungeons and Dragons being played by a group of kids.
Yeah, I thought about it too. I thought like, oh, that'd be fun if they did that. But I wasn't annoyed that they didn't do it.
I wasn't annoyed either, but I feel like that could have been an interesting take and something that I would kind of hope, especially with something with Dungeons and Dragons in the title, because they could have done like a whole Princess Bride scenario, like cutting between the people playing the game and the actual state events of the movie taking place, or done it right at the end as a sort of a cameo bonus or something like that. Could have had the fucking Stranger Things kids be doing that, but I don't know. It felt like a missed opportunity. I'm not going to judge the movie harshly for not including it, because that's like the movie that I wanted and not the movie I got, and that's bad criticism, that's bad faith criticism. But I do feel it was a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Do you care that much about it, or do you just not care?
I mean, it's one of those things where, like, yeah, it would have been cool, but I could see why they didn't want to do it, because you have, again, Stranger Things is really popular with Dungeons and Dragons now, so maybe they didn't want to feel like they were being, like, even though the whole movie is cliche to a degree, maybe they felt like that might have been too much. The Lego movie's already done that. Princess Bride has already done that. So, like, maybe they just felt like this might be a little bit too much. Let's just let people enjoy it as a fantasy movie, and the people who have played Dungeons and Dragons and understand all these little bits will metagame like the whole thing in their head on their own.
Maybe I'm just reading too much of that. Slight missed opportunity, but you explained it pretty well, so I completely get that. And yeah, that's the movie, and people have been raving about it. Everyone's talking about it. 91% on Rotten Tomatoes as of recording. I do like this movie, and I will be honest, discussing with you, Jillian, has given me a newfound appreciation for it. I don't think this is a 90% of Rotten Tomatoes film. I just don't.
No, it's more like an 80, 79, 80.
I'd say high 70s, 80, absolutely sure. Not going to wow anyone who's ever seen a movie before, but it's a fun movie that you should see, and has a lot of cool stuff in it for both newcomers and Dungeons & Dragons fans. Absolutely. People are going a bit overboard with it. I don't know. I think it's because we're seeing a movie like this that isn't a superhero movie.
Yeah, I think I was actually talking about that with Andrew after we came out of the movies. I feel like people really enjoyed this movie because it was in the vein of like the Marvel movies, but it wasn't a Marvel movie. And I think people are finally catching up on the superhero fatigue, that they just wanted to see something that was escapism, fun, that wasn't a superhero movie.
I think you're right, because much as I love Marvel, what I love about Marvel is their ability to tell different kinds of stories. Unfortunately, recently, they've not been doing that. Even Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, a film I liked because it has them going to like this different subatomic dimension that was previously been like hinted at previously, does a lot of the similar things that I think some people are just not sick of, but like fatigue. I didn't jump on the Star Wars fatigue bandwagon because I basically said people are bored of Star Wars. They're bored of shitty Star Wars. That's not quite the case with superhero fatigue. It's just there's been so many of them, and you can have a lot of superhero movies, but they've got to be distinct and have completely different tones and plots and characters that can come together in these big crossovers, but you've got to be distinct. And this is a movie that does feel distinct in terms of like it's a fantasy setting, not maybe distinct in terms of plot beats and character arcs and things like that, but sometimes that's good enough, and it feels like you've been invited on an adventure. Come along with me. Cat
Ash agrees. Yeah.
Meow. And well, you know what? We will talk about our final thoughts on this film in just a moment. Before we do, here are some ads. Check them out. There's a lot to like in this film, and what I like about it is there's lots of big things to like and a lot of small things to like. Like characters in the background, small bits of mise-en-scene, subtle character moments like you mentioned earlier, the metatextual elements, and little thing like that. I mean, for God's sake, there is a literal save the cat moment where the paladin rescues a tabaxi child, like a cat person child, from the mouth of a fish. And not only is that a nice scene in of itself, it firmly introduces what this guy is and what his whole deal is, but also it's an animatronic. It's like practical effects and little things like that. And it honestly, at times, it feels like a fantasy 80s movie.
Yep.
But with updated budgets, a little bit of modern sensibilities, but still what we loved about that. There's elements of the never-ending story and Lady Hawk and fucking Flash Gordon in this. And it doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel tacky. It feels like it was a labor of love from someone who grew up with those kinds of stories. I mean, the directors, Jonathan Goldstein, John Francis Daly, who also worked on the screenplay along with Michael Gillio, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who also worked on the story along with Chris McKay. So there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen right now for this, and that's a big warning sign for me. And yet they still pulled it off, and they still delivered a very fun movie. That's a bit of a popcorn movie, but maybe we need that a little bit right now. Like I said, there's been so much bad news going on all around us. I really think this film came at an excellent time, and whilst there are some parts of it that I can't enjoy because my brain is broken, there's so much of it to enjoy. And is there any particular standout moment for you that we haven't discussed already, Jillian?
Oh, well, I mean, we missed the Critical Role reference, fresh cut grass spell.
Oh, yeah, well, we didn't mention fresh cut grass smell, but no, I didn't connect that as a Critical Role reference.
Yeah, Sam Riegel's new character is called Fresh Cut Grass in Campaign 3.
Yeah, and will that even stack up timeline-wise? Maybe, I don't know.
It should.
But
their campaign has been going on for I think they're on year 2 of Campaign 3 or year 1.
Maybe year 1. I don't know. Oh, how time flies. Yeah, and I guess the thing that I love most about this film is it feels authentic. Unlike that other fucking Dungeons & Dragons movie or the Satanic Panic propaganda piece starring Tom Hanks called Mazes of Monsters, which is his own fucking thing. This feels like it was made, like I said, for people who love Dungeons & Dragons. Obviously, Hasbro have their greedy little claws peering over the corners, making sure everything's going all right. And can I just say one thing? As much as we've been criticizing Wizards of the Coast recently, and for good reason, I don't like the fact that it's called, on the credits, Hasbro's Dungeons & Dragons. Like, call it Wizards of the Coast. Like, fucking hell. Like, it's not Marvel's Spider-Man. It is Marvel Spider-Man. It's not Disney Spider-Man. It's Marvel Spider-Man. You may be the parent company, but that don't mean shit. Get out of here. And what I hope most to come out of this film is that more people start playing Dungeons & Dragons. And hopefully that will happen. People will look at this and think, oh, this is based on a tabletop role-playing game. Maybe I might check that out. And it'd be interesting to see how many people do that. But we've seen expansions of that with Stranger Things and other things like that, like we mentioned. I hope this leads to another thing and just leads to D&D being talked about more in the mainstream. And not like, ooh, look at this nerdy thing that I guess Henry Cavill likes to play. Like, just as an actual proper art form.
I will
like
say,
movies and books and TV shows.
I will say, yes, I wish more people will play Dungeons & Dragons with a caveat. Mm-hmm. I don't, we all have to be on the same side when it comes to whatever Wizards of the Coast is planning in terms of how they're going to restructure Dungeons & Dragons or D&D Beyond, how they're dealing with the OGLs. We all have to be on the same side of that. We can't have division, because what we saw with the OGL is that everybody came together, unsubscribed from D&D Beyond, and then they fixed it. So, because the thing is when something becomes too popular, it just becomes impossible to work as a group to basically use your money to say what you want. Basically, look at J.K. Rowling, fucking piece of shit. Unfortunately, Harry Potter is too big. It's too mainstream. You can't do targeting, what's the word I'm looking for?
Vote with your wallet.
Yeah, you can't do targeting vote with your wallet with Harry Potter.
You say that. Well, here's the thing. You're right with Harry Potter, but interesting thing. I was looking up earlier today things I wanted to talk about on the news, and one thing I was potentially going to talk about was that She Who Must Not Be Named has this publishing company that she does with these books, other books she does called Cormorant Strike, basically these half-baked detective novels, and that company is basically going under massive losses because no one's looking at them, no one's investing in them, and people are basically voting with their wallets. They can't really do that with Harry Potter, but they can do that with other things.
Yeah.
I know that's a separate issue to what you were talking about. I'm just using it as an example. You're absolutely right. But that did give me a little bit of satisfaction. She's still fucking stinking wealthy.
Yeah, I mean, there is satisfaction in that. The other thing, too, is like, at that point, then the person or company becomes so wealthy that they just become delusional. And even if you did targeting, like voting with your wallet, it still might not work. Like, I truly believe if everybody voted with their wallet and stopped like a good chunk of like some sort of Harry Potter thing from coming, J.K. Rowling is just so fucking delusional that she wouldn't even realize that she was the problem. I feel like Hasbro could potentially go in that direction if, again, the new people that are joining D&D just sort of be like, oh, going in the D&D craze, and then they just start throwing their money at things that we should be taking a step back from.
I completely agree. Yes, we do need to be unanimous in pointing out bad business practices. We talked about this on the show before, and yeah, absolutely right. I don't want that to mitigate anyone's enjoyment of D&D, but we have to be able to enjoy D&D. And we can't do that if people are getting screwed over by shoddy, borderline illegal, suddenly unethical business practices.
Yes, D&D is not a video game. So when they start trying to throw out this shit like, hey, you have to buy each item individually, like, no. You gotta say no. That's not what this is.
No fucking microtransactions, no DLC, no fucking overpriced on subscriptions on D&D Beyond. A service that was brought up separately from Wizards of the Coast just to help people play D&D, and they got taken over, and I feel like Jeff Goldblum was just like, before you knew what you had, you're selling it, you're selling it, you're selling it. You're absolutely right. But this will be, for many people, an entryway into a whole new world of fantasy. And in fantasy, sadly, unlike in real life, the good guys, you can be pretty sure, can win. Maybe not in D&D, because total party kills are still a thing. On that note, I think we're going to end the show. Thank you very much, Jillian, for joining me today.
Yeah, of course.
And thank you for joining us, Capers. If you enjoy the show, Capers, please shout it from the rooftops, tell all your friends, and if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other super episodes. Like, we've talked about Dungeons & Dragons before, we all like it over here, so you should like it too. Bow to our will.
Didn't we play a game of Dungeons & Dragons on the show?
There was an attempt made at that at one point. You know what? Yeah, I say that right now, you can't tell from where you're looking, Jillian. You can't tell at home, Capers, but I am looking at the artwork that I commissioned for that group that we played at, because you were playing like this orc barbarian beast character.
Me?
Was that you? Yes.
No, that wasn't me.
Oh no, it wasn't. No,
I was a little gnome.
You were the gnome. You were like the scribe cleric gnome. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
Because I see the murderous character, and I immediately think of you, Jillian.
Yeah, no, that's different campaign.
I'm looking at the artwork of her just like running into this epic battle of us fighting this ice giant, and this ice golem creature. And it's a really nice view for me to have while I record the podcast. But anyway, you can listen to the show on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and all good podcast apps, or at podcapes.com. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at APTHYC. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone, the red booth, 3D glasses. Those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcapers, the official podcast for a place to hang your cape. Cue the music!